This discussion is a brief hypothesis on the pathway and mechanisms of education and learning. Information is ubiquitous, present all around us. Inspiration is the essence of education. There is a hierarchy of information assimilation, knowledge acquisition, and the attainment of wisdom. Our brain at birth is not an empty slate. It has got preloaded information. And in addition, it has got a preloaded ability to learn. Some of the preloaded information codes for instinctive species-specific behavior. There are also species-specific preordained templates for learning. Tribes and families have special abilities for learning. It's true that some are born great, some make themselves great, and some have greatness thrust upon them. Intelligence is the ability to respond meaningfully to information. All life is intelligent. Plants grow their roots towards water and project their leaves for photosynthesis to sunlight. Single-celled organisms move away from noxious stimuli and towards food. There are three phases of intelligence. You have a phase of information assimilation. You have the second phase, that is the information processing. This is the phase of cognition. And the third is the phase of response execution. During the second phase, the phase of information processing, you have evolution of knowledge. That is, knowledge is information which is matured by application and edited by feedback. And you have wisdom. Wisdom is knowledge tempered and matured in the cauldron of character and values. Learning is both structured and unstructured. Structured learning is education. Unstructured learning is passive learning from our environment. But this education, compounded by passive learning, is important because passive learning gives us background information. It gives us context. It gives us cultural flavor. Education occurs on a basic template. This template is specific for species and it's evolved in certain tribes, evolved in certain families, and highly evolved in some individuals. Education is sequential. You first learn alphabets, words, and then you develop eloquence. The concept of numbers gives rise to mathematics and later to calculus. The same is applicable to task performance and the motor pathways. Some motor movements are instinctive and distinctive for each species. Ability to ambulate, to walk, to run evolves from both imitation and from a genetic endowment. And with practice, you develop skills and expertise. How does information acquisition occur and how is information archived or stored? Information flows in through the sensory portals. Each animal has got a particular sense which is dominant. Humans are visual dominant. Animals have a very strong sense of smell. Some animals have evolved hearing. Bats use Doppler. Eyes and the visual pathway are a main portal for information assimilation in humans. But vision is also selective. Our eyes seek out information that we want. And even after the information has gone in through our eyes, there is a certain prioritization and a weeding out and an editing of information before it is recorded. In the visual pathway, we have the thalamus, where certain emergent information is acted upon. This information is sent through a special loop which allows for protective thalamic reflexes. The rest of the information, and even the information which is being acted upon, flows on to the occipital cortex, where there is registration of information. The visual association cortices provide recognition of the registered information. It also gives time and space correlates. Information now moves on to the hippocampus, where there is multi-modality integration and also the creation of information sachets. Information sachets are in two parts. There is one part which contains the raw information, and along with it, you have gist information. Both of these head for different parts of the neocortex. Information transfer from the hippocampus to the neocortex occurs during phase 1 of sleep. This occurs in waves of information transfer called thalamocortical spindles. Where does the information go? The frontal and parietal cortices, which are tethered together through the caudate nucleus, receive information which is passed on from the hippocampus. Information transfer occurs through axons and then through synapses. Synapses are more complex than the binary system which you find in computers and transistors. Synapses have got an ability to stagger conduction because of the dendritic orientation. It has also got a spatial stagger because of a three-dimensional construct of a synapse. This gives additional depth to the information being transferred. The frontal cortex is the executive cortex. This is the prefrontal area. This receives abstract information or information which is coded in language. The ability to code information in language facilitates fast processing and decision making, and it is a secret of human cognitive superiority. The parietal cortex are the deep information archives. Here, information moves into neurons, intraneuronal repositories. The phase of intraneuronal transfer of information is phase 2 of sleep, or non-rapid eye movement sleep. This is the phase where dreams occur. As information moves into neurons, there's a churn which results in some information from the past or from the future or from our thoughts being precipitated and perceived as a dream. How do single neurons store information? It is beyond the synaptic maze. So information has to be stored in chemical bonds or maybe in DNA sequences. We have seen the apparent arm of information registration. What is the efferent arm? The efferent arm is the executive arm, where a motor response is elicited. The motor responses are learned and stored in our accessory motor cortices. It involves also speech patterns. It involves movement patterns. An order from the accessory motor cortex goes to the primary motor cortex, where the movement is imparted into or split into specific muscle contractions. Now, these contractions or the scheme for the contractions is sent to the basal ganglia, where muscle tone, muscle length, and strength of contraction are decided upon. The cerebellum edits the movement so that balance is maintained. Output of speech, of writing, and pure motor outputs all follow this pattern. A pattern started from the accessory motor cortex, initiated by the motor cortex, edited by the cerebellum, and by the basal ganglia. Now, what is very important is that each movement, speech, or writing is modulated by real-time feedback. This feedback is what gives finesse to movement. Feedback comes from the visual cortex. Feedback comes from the auditory system, especially in speech. Feedback comes from proprioception as we move. Feedback comes from tactile as we hold an object. And feedback comes from vestibular, which assures that we maintain our balance. This is the secret of human movement, of human grace. And robotics is now evolving with the integration of feedback modulation into robotic movements. Let's have a brief glimpse of genius. What is genius? Genius is 90% perspiration and 10% inspiration. Education is facilitated by favored or favorable templates. The species and skill sets, species specific skill sets, you already discussed. Certain craftsmen, their families, you'll find that they have their children find it easy to pick up particular skills. Circus families, the children have a huge capability for balance and for acrobatics. The son of professors, the children of professors, the progeny of professors might have more of an academic bent. Musical families, we have already mentioned. The Bach family had 20 musicians. It involves both the genetic endowment and the environment. Chess players. Motor skills are also species specific and also promoted if the templates are favorable. Certain people are more skilled in sport. There are some people with two left feet who cannot dance. Emotions are also predisposed by our genetic endowment and by families and tribes. Crime and violence. There are templates in your brain which lead to a predisposition to criminal activity. Do these traits which we have get modulated? Yes. People in war zones, the children may be traumatized, their behavior tends to be different. It has been shown that some of it is genetically acquired. Mice which were exposed to electric shocks after being given cherry blossom order tend to give birth to progeny who show a fear response as soon as they sense cherry blossom odor. To these siblings, these mice have not ever been exposed to electric shocks. In summary, let me conclude that education is schematized and sequential information registration. The aptitude for education is variable. Tribes, families, and individuals in the same family have differing templates and merit selective and tailored education. The ability to learn and to integrate may be impaired for generations in populations ravaged by war and by deprivation. Criminality is a trait which erupts in hostile environments. Crime rehabilitation by education alone may fail. Neocortex does not have much of a role in character. Religion and values may numb or inflame the violent traits. And sleep is important for learning. The hippocampus is a desktop. It will get cluttered with information sachets. This transfer of information to the neocortex happens in slow wave sleep, also called NREM or non-rapid eye movement sleep. Dreams happen during REM sleep. This is when there is intraneuronal transfer of information from the synaptic maze. Thank you.